How exactly does the human brain create culture? In the first video of this series, we saw how the evolved brain of an ancestral human can be seen to be composed of 7 basic areas of neurochemical activity: sensory awareness, survival rationality, social intelligence, self-awareness, other awareness, dominance, and metaphysics. These areas of the brain then evolved further into the corresponding areas of the modern human brain, which, as we will see, would come to form the basis of the key aspects of modern human culture. From the arts, to the means of production, storytelling, business enterprise, nurturing and welfare, warfare and policing, and belief systems. A focus on the structure of the brain of an individual human, however, is not what culture is about. Culture is of course about groups of individuals, where the individuals are interacting with each other. And the central feature of this new idea, concerning the connection between brain biology and culture, is that culture is created when 2 or more individuals stimulate one or more of these common areas of the human brain. But how do they actually do this? How do individuals stimulate particular neurochemical areas of each other's brain? They do this through the use of what can be called items of mediation. These are human-made objects and sounds that mediate between the common areas of the human brain. Let's take an example. When humans first started to consciously manipulate the material world around them, one of the first things they probably did was to break a branch into a recognizable form, such as that of a human. This simple object, this item, would have stimulated the sensory awareness area of all the humans in the group. A human-made object, something that had never been seen before, acted as an item of mediation between the sensory awareness area of a group of human brains. It first stimulated the visual component of sensory awareness, and then it elicited an emotion. It was therefore one of the first items of visual art, and the beginning of a long line of items made in the human form. Also, individuals within the group would have started beating trees and logs with branches and sticks, simply because they liked the sounds that were made. These were human-made sounds and rhythms that had never before been heard. And these sounds and rhythms would have stimulated the common auditory component of the sensory awareness area of all humans in a group. They, therefore, also acted as items that mediated between the brains of all members of a group. And in a similar way, when humans first started to cook food and add various herbs and spices for smell and taste, the food became an item of mediation between the smell and taste components of human sensory awareness. These newly created food objects could now stimulate these important aspects of human sensory awareness. So in regard to sensory awareness, many different types of objects, sounds, and foods would have been created, which stimulated this important area of the human brain, and continue to be created. And the ones that were liked would have had their process of creation remembered and passed on to the next generation. So we saw the creation of a large and diverse number of items of mediation that acted between the neurochemical processes of the sensory awareness of individual humans, and formed the first components of the visual, auditory, and culinary arts. Likewise, modern humans initially made physical items that stimulated their common brain area of survival rationality, such as digging sticks, which allowed them to easily gain access to roots and tubers, baskets to carry food, and spears to hunt large prey, and thousands of other items to aid survival, all of which were made from the common rationality of humans. That is to say, the basic neurochemical processes of spatial recognition, short and long-term memory, logical induction and deduction, and pattern recognition, which all form the fundamental biological elements of survival rationality. All of these newly created objects then, these tangible items of mediation, had the primary purpose of stimulating the common neurochemical processes of survival rationality of the human brain. And they consequently formed the material basis of the mode of subsistence of early small-scale human populations. with all of their many and varied tools, and along with the fundamental logical procedures of collecting resources, processing resources, and distributing them, formed the complete first mode of subsistence of modern humans. As all of these human activities had to be conducted in a logical and rational order of operation. In the case of social intelligence, what were the items of mediation that humans used to stimulate this part of their brains? Well, first of all, social intelligence is composed of certain fundamental cognitive processes, such as the ability to recognize the emotional states and motivations of others, the ability to recognize deception, and the ability to recognize and respond to social relationships and group hierarchy. These essential neurochemical processes were initially stimulated visually through the observation of facial expressions and bodily movements. However, in regard to culture, they came to be stimulated through the use of new human-made sounds. Specifically, a system of sounds that we refer to as language. The creation of this sophisticated collection of sound items of mediation made it possible to stimulate all the components of social intelligence that made group living possible. And in particular, it took the form of storytelling, where one individual could use language to stimulate all the components of social intelligence of a small or large audience. The motivations, deceptions, and social hierarchy of any individual or human group could be portrayed in storytelling. And it's all made possible by a sophisticated system of items of mediation, human-made vocal sounds, that stimulate the common neurochemical processes of the brain associated with social intelligence. In the case of self-awareness, which is a composite of biological processes that create sensations such as individuality, personal well-being, personal pleasure, and personal pain. The stimulation of these neurochemical processes has many functions in human groups. But for the purpose of understanding the key areas of human culture, it is the role of self-awareness in the creation of business enterprise that is important. Business enterprise began with the simple exchange of objects between individuals. Objects that made each person feel good. Any object could therefore become an item of mediation which stimulated the self-awareness area of the human brain, such as items of food, or the items of art and tools already discussed. Initially, this exchange of items occurred within human groups. It then spread to the trading of items between groups of humans, and then over greater and greater distances. So the same item of mediation that stimulates the self-awareness neurochemical process of an individual in one part of the world could stimulate the same area of the brain of another individual on the other side of the planet. In this sense then, the human need to stimulate self-awareness led to the creation of trade and business enterprise. Next, we have the case of other awareness, which is a composite of biological processes that create sensations such as caring, altruism, and a general awareness of the health and condition of others. The items of mediation that stimulate these common areas of the brain are such things as medicinal plants and compounds, and medical apparatus, such as crutches, bandages, and so on. Just the sight of medicine or some medical equipment triggers feelings of other awareness within the brains of a group of humans. Everyone is aware that someone within the group is injured or ill. We now come to the case of the dominance aspect of the human brain. The neurochemical processes of dominance initially created behaviors such as physical and verbal aggression. Behaviors that continue in modern humans today. But dominance is not just about aggression. It's actually about the human desire to control and secure the social and physical environment. So from the point of view of culture, these specific neurochemical processes created items of mediation which have two forms. Firstly, those characteristic of the in-group dominance of policing. And secondly, those characteristic of the out-group dominance of warfare. In the case of the in-group dominance of policing, we see the creation of such items of mediation as batons, whipping lashes, handcuffs, and so on. And in the case of the out-group dominance of warfare, we see the ongoing creation of items of mediation, such as weapons and shields, of all forms and types. Collectively then, these items of mediation stimulate the common neurochemical processes of dominance of all humans. And finally, we have the items of mediation associated with triggering the metaphysics area of the human brain, such as objects like spiritual icons and particular sounds made by special instruments, all of which stimulate the biological processes of the human brain associated with metaphysics. And so we see a large, increasing number of items created by humans, which mediate between the key common areas of the human brain. Items of mediation that form clusters of objects and sounds associated with distinctive neurochemical processes. And these clusters of tangible and intangible items initially formed all the key aspects of culture: the arts, modes of production, storytelling, business enterprise, nurturing and welfare, warfare and policing, and belief systems. What we are seeing here then is in effect the gradual manifestation of the key areas of the human brain as the key areas of culture. As humans deliberately created objects and sounds that stimulated specific areas of the brain, they were, in a real sense, manifesting those biological processes as those very objects and sounds. So these fundamental neurochemical processes, which for millions of years of human evolution had simply perished when individuals died, were now manifested as items of mediation that survived from one generation to the next. This was an extraordinary event in the history of all life on this planet. For the first time, the evolved brain processes of a living species were manifesting into the material world in a permanent way. But not only manifesting as individual objects and sounds. Evolved neurochemical processes also manifested as group behaviors and rituals that were passed from one generation to the next. All rituals and cultural practices and protocols are in effect also items of mediation, which stimulate specific areas of the human brain. Such things as religious rituals, healing practices, soldiers marching, and so on, all stimulate specific brain processes of those engaged in the performances and those watching them. And as the manifestation of human neurochemical processes continued, as human populations became larger and larger, and consequently, more specialized, we eventually see the creation of elaborate cultural spheres associated with each of these 7 key areas of the human brain. And as we will see in the next video, these elaborate cultural spheres collectively form large-scale, contemporary human culture.